Hey everyone, it is Irene, Lyon here, and welcome to this YouTube channel and to this entire world of healing trauma, nervous system health, and all things neuroplasticity. Every now and again, we replay an old video. Sometimes we replay an old interview. And today, as you may see from the title, we are replaying an interview I did with a young man named Juan Pablo, whom I interviewed, I can't believe it, it was 2 years ago already. It was in the fall of 2022. And this talk got, up until when I'm recording this intro, 973 comments, which is a lot for my channel, and 70,000 views. Now, this was a very sensitive topic 2 years ago. Under the comments, if you go to the old video, which I encourage you to do to see where people were at 2 years ago, there were many people who had similar experiences to him with the plant medicine ayahuasca. Now, in this talk, we do not say that one should not do this. It is very individual. This is his story, his share, and the title, the original title, Ayahuasca Destroyed My Nervous System, those are his words, his personal experience. So we wanted to rerun this because I feel that we've had more experience with this medicine in current day practice in this modern, Western, and highly stressed out world of ours. And I just wanted to reshare it and see who is here now watching and listening to these videos, see if anyone else has had similar experiences or maybe opposite experiences. Many of my colleagues facilitate various plant medicine ceremonies with what we would call true shamans. It seems that Juan Pablo's story was with those who weren't so great. So wanted to reshare, have a watch, have a listen, and please leave your comments and questions under this video, and make sure to subscribe if you have not yet done so to this channel so you get updates when we release videos each week. I want to read what you wrote that caught my attention. It was on our Facebook page. It's just so perfect. So it was an introduction thread where I said, please let us know where you are, what your journey is with healing the nervous system. So this was your response. Oof, where to start? Exclamation mark. Haha. A little bit more than 2 years of knowing your work after destroying my nervous system via an ayahuasca ceremony. Between my SE therapists and your education, I saved my life. Now my relationship with my body just keeps getting better and better. I feel like a new person already, and my capacity has been growing so much. Each day I keep orienting my attention to the goodness I have been blessed to receive through your work. I am beyond grateful and eager to go deeper into the work. Big hugs to you and your team. So why I wanted to talk to you, and you said yes, so thank you, is when you mentioned ayahuasca. I know some folks who have had positive results with the medicine, but I also know of folks who have not. So this isn't about saying what is better or worse for people, but your experience and your journey. So please start by saying, where you are, if you wish, what you do, and just how you got into this journey of healing your nervous system.
Thank you, Irene.
Yeah.
Thank you for this opportunity as well. It's just great to talk to you. Wow, well, I didn't actually remember what I wrote, what you just read.
Yeah.
And it already gets me emotional because it's been such a, even though it's been only 2 years, it feels like such an adventure, and it's been so much, just too much, no? And it's so cool to witness myself having this talk with you after everything I went through with this experience now.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess I should say I have a background on spiritual issues, no? I think I've been exposing myself to spiritual teachers and teachings for about 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had very crazy mystical experiences for sure. And I had no idea about trauma, or the physiology of trauma, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
And I was very much looking to get to that point of spiritual enlightenment for all these years. And I didn't know I was, now I know, but at that time I didn't know I was just escaping my internal experience in my body.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And and I think I was in a very kind of dissociated state, always living in this kind of energy field, not really in my body,
Yeah.
which I think it's very common for many people who are into this spiritual work. And one could even celebrate that.
Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
it can feel very euphoric, I think, and
yes, that's the word.
you probably know the term, and for all folks listening who are new to this topic, we would call it spiritual bypassing,
Yes.
right? I don't know if you've heard that, but it's been around for a while, that term, but it's becoming, I think, a bit more known.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Um, so I guess there was a point where I got to this, like to a pike of my spiritual experience,
Mm-hmm.
and where I thought I was the most enlightened guy, but but it was very, what's the word I'm looking for, like incoherent
Mm-hmm.
when I jumped into my relationships.
I see.
Especially there, it was like, maybe this is not really good enough. So I actually tried other things,
Mm-hmm.
like more like in the field of self-inquiry,
Yes.
which might not be as spiritual as meditating or being devoted to a teacher or something. No, it was more like with myself, with my thoughts, with my emotions, and it was good for quite a while. But the
Mm-hmm.
circumstances were too much for me, and even though I think it's a good technique, I think it can also be very re-traumatizing. And I also didn't know about that. So
Right.
for me, it was, if I was experiencing a lot of catharsis inside of this practice, I was
Mm-hmm.
thinking this is going good,
Yeah.
but not really, as I
Yeah.
learned.
I have a question. When you mentioned self-inquiry, just for those who aren't familiar with what that might be, or what was it that you were doing specifically, if you have any examples?
Yeah.
Just, yeah.
I started doing first this work that is actually called The Work by Byron Katie.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people know it.
Yeah, very popular.
It's very popular. Um, and then I I ended up taking another. It's kind of the same thing, but it has a different name, and it was different people who created this work based on Byron Katie's
Right.
and in other things. And I took that course, and I was doing that with these people. No,
Mm-hmm.
so yeah, it's like questioning your beliefs, kind of thing.
Very thought-based.
Yes, and there was a little bit of body emotion awareness, but
Mm-hmm.
not within the context of really knowing what it's going on physiologically.
Right.
That was my
So,
experience.
yeah, so that I often find, just to share, that work can be powerful if there's a context to know how to listen to what's coming up physiologically. And that, again, for many, it's just not there at the outset.
Yeah, of course. And I think I didn't have really that kind of baseline to
Yeah.
actually work with that and really be able to integrate it.
Mm-hmm.
So I
Can
was
I
very
add?
frustrated.
Yeah, it there's been a few talks with my students where they sense this frustration and this almost anger because they feel like they're doing the work, whether it's Byron Katie's or someone else's, and they see that they're still having the same frustrations over and over again. I wanted to ask, let me know if, this is not something you want to share, but I will ask, what led you to want to do self-development work at the beginning? Did you know that something was missing? Were there symptoms, life crisis? What was going on that made you dive into
Oh,
this?
I love that question.
Okay, let's hear it. Let's hear the answer.
Well, I should say I have had my very big load of suffering in this lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And even I was born into a loving family, like not really like any monster like
Yeah.
person around, but still, as we know now, that it's not enough in this modern civilization.
Mm.
And I just grew up as a child with these very deep questions inside myself, and I'd never found answers from
Yeah.
nobody.
Yeah.
And I used to suffer in silence these questions, these frustrations. And so I learned to cope with it by external behaviors. As I was growing up, I became addicted to certain behaviors, certain things. And I remember that at some point, I was very conscious that I was absolutely depressed. Nobody had to tell me. I just knew it. And then I was like, well, this can't be it. Like, is this really what it's gonna be always? And I'm like, no.
And you were so
So
young, I'm
yeah,
assuming.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think I was, well, around 20, 21 years old.
it's young.
And I'm still young.
I believe you.
But yeah, I mean, I was just very frustrated.
Mhm.
And then I started going into, but I actually had already interest in spiritual stuff when I was even younger. Like I would sit and meditate on the living room, and I had no idea what I was doing, but I was doing it. No? And it's kind of funny to remember that. But then I started to actually look for information more deeply. So I, in my own way, became a Buddhist, and then I became a Hinduist, and then I became whatever I was learning. I became that, and I was
Yeah,
like, oh, this is it, this is it, this is it, this is it. No? So yeah, that's how I started the
yeah.
whole show.
That's incredible that you were so young. It seems it feels as though there were some past lives. I'm not sure if you are open to that idea of soul, and I have a sense that you might be.
I am open to that.
Yeah. Did your family wonder what's, this little one is meditating so young? Did they feel that that was odd, or were they even aware that you were asking these questions and connecting to that at such a young age?
I don't think they were aware really of the depth of my questions.
Yeah.
I think they saw me, and I have had this talk with them. No, I think they saw me just as a boy that had some particularities in him, like because I was like I used to portray different characters, and when
Mm,
I was a kid, like I would be a soccer player, and then a doctor, and then something else, a teacher, and I would do many things. No, so
yeah.
I think they knew there was something kind of funny, particular in myself, but I don't think they were aware of the depth of my questions, because I don't think I also was able to actually communicate those.
Mhm. But you knew something deep was important to uncover.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I remember having this. Now I would call them a kind of dissociative states, but
Hmm.
I actually remember seeing my father's face or my mother's face, and knowing like this is my mom, this is my father, but I would really, really, really question inside myself, like, but what the hell does that mean? Like, who is this face? Like, I know she's my mom, but what the hell is that? No, and I would
Yeah.
have these thoughts, but I kind of knew if I speak this, this is no good. Like, if I make this question, this is no good. I don't know why I knew that. No,
Could it be that you were sensing that it wouldn't be safe to bring up that existential, who are you?
I think so. Yeah,
Why are we here?
yeah.
That's so interesting. I think what's important for me to really highlight for those listening and us as well, and I think you know this, is as you said, you grew up in a loving home and yet there was something missing, and that can lead us to this biological depression. And then, of course, seeking those answers, which you started to very young.
Oh
What
yeah.
led you to that ayahuasca journey? It was 2 years ago, it sounds like, when that occurred. Tell us about this. What was happening? Take us through.
Here we go.
Here we go. Hang on.
Actually, I was just thinking that today, what day is today? September.
It's the 27th.
I think it was today, 2 years
Yeah,
ago, that I had this experience. At
that's
least
amazing.
some of the last days of September.
Yeah.
Um, well, I was, like I said, I was working with these self-inquiry methods.
Mm-hmm.
I had I was in a relationship at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and that relationship started to crumble. So I was emotionally like super, just very moved, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but also we were in that kind of phase where we wanted to be together, but things were crumbling, but we couldn't actually separate. So it was like this kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Back and forth.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it never really ended, but it was nothing really. So it was, I don't know, it was very crazy, you know. So I was suffering a lot. I
Mm-hmm.
knew, and I think this is important to mention because I knew I was very conscious of my own patterns, uh, negative thoughts, negative beliefs. I knew where the issues were because of this self-inquiry work. I was very aware of how my
Sure.
thoughts would come. Even I was aware of kind of some sensations in my body and everything, no?
Mm.
But knowing that was not enough to fix it.
Yeah.
And so um, the um, the partner that I was with, she actually went to an ayahuasca thing.
Okay.
And she told me about it. And because I was trying to save this relationship, I was like, well, now I'm gonna do it also. Like I need to experience something similar so I can be on your
Of course.
age and we can be together. No, it
Mm-hmm.
was kind of a, I don't mind saying it, but kind of a manipulative, subtle way, no,
Yeah.
to be together. And so things started happening around myself. So I was able to actually go to this ayahuasca ceremony. Actually, a friend of mine paid for it
Ah.
because he did it once and he told me about this crazy experience with a serpent and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I think in the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, more dissociation. Let's go.
Let's sign me up.
Oh gosh. So I went. Um, I I wasn't religiously prepared to do it as the shamans asked me. I have to be
Mm,
honest, because they ask you like you have to eat a certain way and
yeah.
do all this stuff to prepare. I did everything except I was also supposed to not have sex, and that happened. No,
Yes.
so maybe there's a factor that I have to include. But anyway, um, I went And I remember I'm not going to go through the whole
No.
content of the ceremony, but I
Mm-hmm.
want to highlight certain things that
Mm-hmm.
I think are important in this
Mm-hmm.
context now. First of all, I did the first take, and maybe 30 minutes passed, and I was experiencing deep, very, very deep fear.
Mm.
Like I actually remember the sensations as I
Yeah.
speak of it now, like these nails in my arms and shoulders, and the thoughts were racing like crazy, like
Yeah.
crazy. And I had the feeling that something horrible was going to happen.
In that moment.
Yes,
Uh-huh.
but it was also very appealing to know what it was. So I was kind of like, okay, this is what ayahuasca is about. I'm going to
Mm.
have to confront this thing, no? But I was scared as shit. Like,
Yeah. Terrified, it
oh
sounds like.
yeah, yeah. But I wasn't yet seeing or hearing anything. I was
Mm-hmm.
conscious and normal, just very afraid.
Mm-hmm.
So the shamans, I should say shamans, uh, they go around serving the second round for people.
Mm-hmm.
So she comes and she asks me, "Do you want to take another one?" And I'm like, "I don't know." And I actually told her like, "I'm afraid of as shit. I'm super scared. I feel a lot of resistances in my mind."
Mm-hmm.
And the guy told me, "Well, let's break those resistances."
Ooh.
And then he gave me the second one, which was actually a stronger, and
True.
it was like it had more density of the
Yes.
actual content, no?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, no, like I'm already here.
Yeah.
So glue, glue, and maybe a minute went by,
Mm-hmm.
and I started having this feeling of I'm dying, like
Yeah.
I'm dying. No,
Mm-hmm.
I actually started witnessing the how my senses were sleeping, were putting to sleep. So my body was
Oh, I see.
calmer and calmer and calmer, but a calm that felt like death.
Death.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very weird because I was at the same time kind of frozen, but also all this fear, I felt it was kind of wanting to come up.
Mm-hmm.
So I saw that everybody else, people were either sitting quietly on their own space or laying down, no much noise, no much going on. But I felt like I wanted to go up and run.
Yeah.
So I actually stood up and went close to the shaman that started singing um, with the hang drum. So I was there and I was moving a lot because I felt how all this energy was like
Mm-hmm.
cramping up inside myself. And I was singing, and but I was nervously singing. No, everything I did inside the ceremony, I was doing it absolutely afraid.
Mm-hmm.
There's no doubt. It might look from outside that I was enjoying because I was singing, but it wasn't true.
Yeah. Was it as though it was like a way to match the frantic chaos that you were feeling?
That's a perfect way to describe it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It,
It helped resource you.
of course, of
Uh-huh.
course. I actually, I, I remember I did something that it's quite beautiful actually, uh, but I can also see how it was just my way of coping. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I started walking around everybody that were sitting. I was the only person that was standing, walking. Even I was even yelling stuff, not crazily, but I was saying things loudly.
Yeah.
I started walking around with my hands like this, and inside myself, it was like I was sending blessings to everybody,
Oh my goodness.
which is kind of it's a beautiful
Of
gesture.
course.
But I was so afraid, and
Yeah.
this was kind of a way of me coping with
Mm-hmm.
the intensity that I was feeling.
Mm-hmm.
I actually see it kind of like this now that we know there are some people that we are working in this trauma thing. We know the phone response. No,
Yes.
it was kind of this. Uh, it's all good. It's all good. Love to everybody. No.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that when that was occurring, and this just came to my mind, if there was this like desire to also connect? Here you are standing and everyone's just chill, apparently. And it's like, come on, play with me. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
that, just a thought that came to mind.
Well, it makes sense. It makes sense. I actually remember being um very desperate to touch. So
Mm,
I knew I was kind of in my senses still. So I knew I couldn't just go and touch people.
mm-mm,
But the shaman was there, the lady shaman. So I a lot of times I went there and sat beside her and take her hand. I
mm.
think that kind of saved my life a bit.
I think so.
Even
Yeah.
even even though she might not even what the hell was going on,
Yeah.
or had the actual knowledge to provide a safe space.
Hmm.
But just me feeling her hand was enough to have a little window of safety.
Yeah.
Um, but things started going really, really bad at some
Hmm.
point. Like I started seeing, like my mind started using other people's bodies that were there to kind of portray scenes from my past,
Hmm.
even scenes from things that I don't even know if they were from this life, or
Right.
that I even experienced. Maybe they were experienced by a grandparent or something. Really crazy stuff,
Hmm.
really dark stuff. I started having this very deep pain in my body, especially in my viscera, in my deep belly.
Hmm.
Oh, and I it felt like I was screaming for help inside,
Yeah.
and it never came.
Right.
It just never came. And at some point, my body started like fainting. Like
Right.
I couldn't feel my legs anymore. I couldn't walk anymore. So I started actually kind of crawling sometimes, and then I just fell to the floor.
Collapsed.
Yeah, even I had like my guitar in there because I was singing also,
Hmm.
which it was kind of the same thing. I was coping with it.
Yeah.
And then I fell down with even the guitar made like all this chaotic sound, like and the strings. And then I started having these very crazy hallucinations
Uh,
where I really lost consciousness of my body, the place where I was in, name, age, everything just faded away.
Fractured, essentially.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I was experiencing an endless loop of me seeing this image of it was like the shaman was also my mind using the shaman's bodies to portray also things now.
Hmm.
It's very crazy. And
Hmm.
it was like kind of the vision of what I wanted, the vision of the person that I wanted to save me, and then the vision of the other person that was a complete threat.
Um,
And every time I would go and reach for the one that could save me, the thing changed and the other one appeared like, no.
mm,
So I would get scared and look for the other one, and it was an endless loop, no?
loop.
Endless. And this was a complete hallucination.
Hmm.
At some point, I remember that my conscious mind would kick in sometime, sometimes, and I would hear myself thinking, I am that guy that it's stuck forever in a in an ayahuasca trip.
Ah,
That's why my mind would say.
oh boy.
I was like, I am that guy. I am that case. No,
Had you heard of those cases prior to this?
not really.
Okay.
Not really. No, I heard a lot of. I heard the hype of you're going to see very beautiful things, or you're going to see the Matrix, and you're going to heal, because that's what ayahuasca does. It heals. No,
Mm-hmm.
it's the healer, and
Mm-hmm.
and they said, even the shaman said, like, you're maybe going to see wild things and ugly stuff. They would
Mm-hmm.
even say, like, there's kind of ugly spirits that come to the ceremony, but
Yeah.
they come because they want to help you. No,
Ah,
I was like,
yikes.
okay. I really had no um what's the word, like, any parameter to compare, because my journey has always been, or at least until that point, I was only into meditation kind of stuff,
Mm-hmm.
which is not about visualizing or hallucinating stuff or whatever. It's not even about belief in something.
Yeah. It's about the moment.
Yes. Yeah, it's a very organic kind of thing to do. Um and I was also a lot into devotion, no? Like having these spiritual teachers, and
Mm-hmm.
kind of not even pray, but just like to kind of be in commune with the soul of my spiritual teacher, or
Connection.
Buddha, or whatever. No?
Connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
So it was never about um well, anything else really, just that. No?
Yeah.
So ayahuasca was kind of I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah. So obviously you came out of that. What occurred? Did you stay? Did you go after that collapse?
Yeah. So it and at some point I came out of that endless loop. It really
Mm-hmm.
felt like eternity.
Mm-hmm.
I came out of it. I was super tired. My mind was rushing like crazy, trying to
Mm-hmm.
understand everything that happened. But I came back to normal life, apparently, for maybe a week or a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Um, at that point, my relationship was totally broken, and we were having no contact.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, that's it. I'm on my
Yeah.
own now. And I was actually working as a facilitator for people to do self inquiry.
Mm,
So I would do the questions, and people would go into themselves, and I would be just like the container for it to happen,
sure.
you know, which I was enjoying a lot, that work. And I had a session after a week of that ceremony where things became more mystical than usual.
Right.
Like the answers that the woman that was inquiring started to go a little bit crazy, and then she started saying, like, I see you as this kind of angel, and I see your wings, and I started feeling the wings, and
Oh,
things
wow.
just went crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And it might seem like it's a beautiful experience, but again, it started to um to bring a lot of fear inside myself.
Mm-hmm.
Panic, actually.
Mm-hmm.
I really panicked at that
Mm-hmm.
feeling of feeling the wings. Was like, what the fuck is going on? No,
Well, it's similar to when you hear folks who are having severe hallucinations and psychoses,
absolutely.
that fracture of reality. And of
Yeah,
course, visualization and creativity are important for humans, but it can go over the edge to not knowing what's real and what's not real.
That's exactly what started happening from that point on.
Yeah.
And it kept being like that for maybe 6 months
Wow.
on the first phase of it,
Wow.
because it really lasted like a year. But after 6 months, I started doing uh, kind of different things, and it started working. But the first 6 months, maybe, it was every day full of hallucinations. I couldn't sleep. Um, even things that people not even think about in any day. Like sometimes I would just pass food through my throat, and that would be scary.
Yeah.
Like it was like crazy.
Yeah.
Um,
Very intense. I mean, you understand this now, but intense survival physiology.
yeah,
Again, when you were in the ceremony that I'm going to die, that feeling of death.
absolutely.
So that food, it's like I'm going to choke,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Everything was a
Um,
threat. Everything became a threat, really.
and I want to, I mean, I'm really glad you're here and well.
Thank you.
So important. But for those who think that this might seem extreme because we hear lots of positive elements of the plant medicine world, and there is a time and a place, but I am connected with many people in the healing worlds and high levels. And just the other day, someone was saying what they don't say are the suicides that occur after some of these ceremonies. And it's a real thing. And I think it's really important. This is why I wanted to talk to you. Because I know folks who have had positive experiences with various plant medicines, but then there's the case where this might not occur. And it is just very important to me that people understand this. So how did you start to then unravel after that 6 months and things shifted? What was the process in
Yeah.
that moment moving
Well,
forward?
first I have to say, because you mentioned about the um, the guys or the people that commit suicide after it, I absolutely understand why.
100%.
That would actually, it makes sense to do it. I know it sounds like a strong thing to say, but it makes
Mm-mm.
sense.
And
Um,
what I want to say is when we first started talking and you mentioned when you were young and you were connected asking these questions, of course this is me speculating, but my sense is your constitution, whether it's your soul, whatever, it's strong and it's keeping you tethered in reality. And so you are dipping in and out. But someone that doesn't have that level of strength, who maybe had more like significant trauma growing up, they might not have that ability to tether and stay grounded even when things feel chaotic.
yeah, yeah, I know it. And saying that now feels so powerful because I know it's true
Mhm.
that I was only able to survive that experience because my soul is strong enough.
Yes.
But also, I think it's important to mention that um, I think sometimes in that healing world, it can be an excuse to use these cathartic practices because we assume in this healing world that every soul is ready to unravel everything at
Yes.
once. And I don't think that's the case.
It is not the case.
Like, if this happened to me, now I can rescue from that experience, that not the actual experience, but what I had to do to overcome what it produced in myself.
Exactly.
It has given me a deeper purpose now. Now you actually want people to know everything about trauma and the physiology of trauma. But I know there are cases where people, like you say, they either commit suicide afterwards, or at least they just suffer for the rest of their life with all these crazy symptoms.
Yep.
I even heard some people die in the actual ceremony. And sometimes the shamans and the guides and all these people, they use a flag that says you have to confront your shadow.
Right.
And I have to say that can be a really dangerous flag to portray in a world where people don't know about regulation, don't know about the physiology of trauma.
No.
Because they are not going to be able to know what's going on inside them and to soothe themselves.
One of a student of mine, he has said that because he's interested in plant medicines and helping people use them responsibly with the nervous system lens. And he had mentioned that he's in a place right now in South America where there's lots of shamanic practices and plant medicines. And he had an assumption, which is completely valid, that in that more natural Amazonian setting, that the shamans would understand trauma and that the medicine would have taught them about the traumas and the nervous system. And then he quickly realized that that is not the case. They aren't aware of the nervous system and trauma. And that, and I said, or I thought to myself, well, these medicines are natural and they're of the earth. And what humans are dealing with now is not natural and of the earth. It's of a deep wound in our species. Where it comes from, that's a whole other topic. And so we're not like the rivers and the oceans and the stars and the plants, where we have a lot of layers that are not connected. And for many, as you said, there's just very little knowledge of how to be with sensation and our biology. And so then you add something that's potent from biology, and some will be okay and some might not be okay.
Yeah. I think it's kind of like when we as humans, we domesticate a wild animal. And maybe like these cases where some animal grew up in a zoo or in a place where it's actually more like humanized. And then they release that animal into the wild, and the animal has no idea how to behave in that kind of
environment.
The environment, of course.
Yeah.
So he dies. He can't survive there. I think it's the same when we throw ourselves into these kind of very natural ways of Mother Earth. We are also not ready to survive those experiences.
No.
For the most cases. No.
Well, swimming isn't a natural thing for a human. We all have to learn how to swim.
Of course.
And yet we came from the water. So how does, there's these interesting.
I know.
Some things just don't add up.
I know. And that's very interesting, because we could make the assumption that because we came from the water as unicellular organisms, we would be able to swim, no? And I think that's the kind of thinking that we sometimes use for in the healing world. Like, but we come from spirit, so we should be able to
connect,
to tolerate a huge opening of the heart, no? And I don't think that's true at all.
It's such a fascinating topic. In my experience, when we get into the somatic work, and I'd like to hear a bit of your journey around that, we can have these mystical, embodied, beautiful experiences but it's the dose that we can handle in the moment. And it doesn't mean that we won't be able to have that big intensity. I think it's interesting, Juan Pablo, to go back how you said when you were at the ceremony, you said to them, I'm scared, before the second taking of the medicine. Just speaking from being in workshops where I've facilitated, obviously not plant medicine, but movement and sensation and voice and connecting with humans. If someone came to me, and this is where it comes down to the trauma-informed, nervous system informed ability to know what's going on. If a student said, I'm afraid, I'm frightened, I'm not going to say, well, just take it or just do it. Let's push you, right? And then we want to listen to the teacher. We want to have the experience. We want to, in some ways, obey. I hate to say that word, but it's like a yoga class. How many people have injured their spines because they were told to do a handstand and they've never even attempted it?
Yes.
But we follow as we are as humans often. So what has been the journey the last year, and what was the entry point into, let's say, finding the somatic experiencing practitioner or practitioners that you've worked with? How is that? Because you're clearly here, connected, not in that fractured state anymore. So yeah.
Well, I found first, I think it was Peter Levine's video
Mm-hmm.
where it opened my eyes in a way that I would never end to describe. No?
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, this is fucking it. Finally, because I tried everything also. This is
Yeah.
also it's very interesting. I tried everything. I went to different shamans, witches. I did, they did Reiki on me. I even had an exorcism.
Wow. Cool.
Like
Yeah.
really.
I believe you.
I could write a fucking book on all the experiences that I had trying to heal from that shit.
Uh-huh.
um I also went to a traditional psychologist
Mm-hmm.
who made it worse.
Mm.
I went to a psychiatrist who made it worse with a couple of drugs that I had to take in and just made the symptoms 100
Worse.
times worse.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, wow, I'm not going out of this now. And then I found that video. And something just clicked.
Mm-hmm.
And I was hanging into that very little like a strength of light
Mm-hmm.
that was there because everything else was failing. So I was like, okay, I think I'm going to find, so I have to find something. This can't be it. And then I found that video.
Yeah.
So I started looking for more videos on Peter Levine's work. Then I found the book, Waking the Tiger,
Mm-hmm.
and I read it. And so I was like, okay, now I understand this. I think I understand this. Now I really need to experience it. So I started looking for SE therapists.
Yeah.
And I found people, and I started even the first session. This is a very good story. I did the
Yeah.
first session. I would hear screams in my ear
Mm-hmm.
when I was going to sleep. So I couldn't really sleep because I was hearing all these screams. No? Like just people yelling in my ear.
Mm-hmm.
And in this session, I was shocked because very naturally I wanted to speak about all the things that I was experiencing. And the practitioner, very, very skilled, and with a lot of, I should say, like, it was like silk, her
Mm-hmm.
way of speaking to me.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, I invite you, very politely, to keep that story of what's happening to you right there. It's okay. It's not going anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going on in your feet?
Mm.
Like, can you feel your feet on the ground? No. And I was like, oh, well, yes, I can. No? So is there a threat in there? Do you feel something really bad's going on there? And I'm like, not really, no. And she started guiding me through aisles, like Peter Levine says, no? Aisles of sensation,
Mm-hmm.
where I could actually feel that nothing really bad was going on, even though I
Right.
had the crazy
Yeah.
hallucinations, the yellings and everything. And anyway, she guided me through all of that, everything that we know from the SE world, all these movements that are frozen inside the body, you know, from
Yeah.
the past.
Yep.
And I experienced that close to the end of the session, that I wanted to push and kind of punch and
Yep.
yell and everything. And then I heard the screams coming louder and louder.
Mm-hmm.
But as I completed all these protection defense mechanisms,
Movements. Mm-hmm.
the screams just faded. And that was the first, and I actually had a memory of something that happened with a brother where he was screaming, and like
Ah,
it made sense.
yeah,
At some point it made sense. I was like, oh yeah, I experienced this now. So my mind was like, of course it makes sense.
of course.
And that was the first night that I had a good sleep.
So good.
So I was like,
I'm
okay, this is it.
beautiful. That connection with the self-protective response, with a memory, a cognition, a state, and just integrating them for completion. It's so simple, and yet it's not yet well known, this concept of needing to
Yeah.
complete the biological need to fight or to scream or to push or to run.
Yes. And also I think to understand that for that to happen, you have to build a certain well, capacity, as
Yeah,
we call it. No,
exactly.
even I think it could happen inside the context of even one session,
Hmm.
but it doesn't mean that you are going to heal everything in one session.
Hmm.
It just means in one session it could happen that you complete one mechanism from the
Of
past,
course.
and you could have a huge relief from some symptom or
Yeah.
whatever. But of course, that's only the, for me it was only the beginning, no?
Yeah. And then you
So
continued.
and then I found you. Then I
Ah,
found
and
you.
then okay, that's it.
Then I found you. and and I now I completely agree with you that it is so important to understand the deep theory,
Mhm.
because when I found you and I started watching and watching and watching your videos, I started writing down stuff. I became really obsessed about it. Like all day long, I was either watching your videos or thinking about it or speaking about it
Yeah.
with people.
Yeah.
So all this knowledge started to really sink into myself.
Hmm.
So every time I did another SE session, I was more knowledgeable about it all. So I would actually experience even less fear
Yes.
inside the session.
Yes.
So I agree with you how important it is to provide this food, this knowledge to our cognitive mind
Hmm.
that wants to understand.
Hmm. It is something that I fight for, because there are many who feel that we, even colleagues of mine, to be honest, who don't think we need to educate our clients, students, however you want to call them, around the theory. And I'm like, nope, so much can happen with an open mind and someone who's keen to then track their body. So much can occur. So thank you for acknowledging that importance of the education. So good.
Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Anything else that you would like to share around this journey, around your discoveries, for anyone listening who maybe has been on this journey or is considering plant medicine, knowing that we can't tell people what to do and not to do? What are your words of wisdom now that you're on the other side and doing very well?
Yeah. Well, honestly, I have had people come to me to ask about ayahuasca because I started a YouTube channel and I'm starting to share all this knowledge about nervous system now.
Great.
And in my first video, it's called Ayahuasca Destroyed My Nervous System.
That's a good book title.
Oh yeah. So of course there's a lot of people that it's coming into it because it's a huge title, no? And because ayahuasca has become so popular with, well, it's like a so, and I would say to them, and I say to them, like, personally, if you ask me, I don't think it's necessary to go into these very big cathartic things, let alone ayahuasca. It could be breath work or something else.
Yep.
That it's also very powerful and very cathartic. And I always say, take your time to learn first your biology, your physiology.
Yes.
Learn to differentiate between wanting to fight and wanting to run, and when you are frozen. Learn to differentiate how even your psychological state is, because it also provides information about what you are feeling in your body. Sometimes what you're thinking gives you the hint that you were not able to feel first in your body.
Yeah.
No? So
Yeah.
it's like you have to be a crazy scientific guy inside yourself and make your body your laugh. And then you can make a wise decision and be like, okay, I think I'm ready to experience something a little bit more heavy or spicy. And then it becomes a healthy challenge, I think. No? But not before.
Love it.
That's my answer also.
Thank you. That's the perfect answer, and maybe a good place for us to close and end. You said you have a channel. Is that correct?
Yes.
Is it in your mother tongue, or is it in English, or both?
In my mother tongue.
Beautiful. Well, we will link that because I know we've had people ask if my work is translated in other languages. So for those who speak Spanish, we'll put that there and you can teach them what you're
That's
learning
amazing.
through. Yeah,
that's amazing.
Perfect. Juan Pablo, I'm really appreciative of your time and your strong soul, and you made it through. And I really hope this helps others who are on that wondering of, should I do this, or whom are in the midst of healing from one of these crises.
Yes. Oh my God, I'm so happy to have this conversation, Irene. Really, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.